Size printer isn't working.
Oh. I'm sorry.
Didn't print.
So I did tested this again, so it's printing from, are you printing from? Sometimes you have to down. For some, it's only happened a few times.
So when I go to print, this is the correct printer. If I select properties, everything's showing up correctly, main, save, everything. And then I hit OK. And print. It says it's printing. And then nothing comes out.
Okay,
And I printed from your computer, so it shouldn't.
yeah.
So.
What's that? Actually, not. Let's do the whole project. We decided this counts for visitors.
I'll move all the way.
No, this counts. for visitors. That's what. Oh, true. Visitors to the chamber. Exactly. You look at your numbers.
Yeah.
In one night.
Excellent.
We're here now. To do.
What? No. But I'm just gonna look on them. Maybe we'll see.
Yeah.
That's what we
Where's it going?
It's like,
Well.
ma'am, do you mind if I ask you to move? Because you're gonna be blocking the camera. You. You can scoot over one chair. Yeah, please. There we go. Thank you. I think that's good, yeah? Okay. Do you want me to fold those up?
No.
Okay.
Oh, one more down. Thank you. Okay, council, you guys ready? Yep, got internet. You're almost there?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, sounds good. Welcome ladies and gentlemen to the council meeting this evening on Tuesday, December 17th. This is, time is 7:05. I, Mayor Caden, call this meeting to order. Can I please have a roll call to stand up?
Counselor Funderburk.
Here.
Counselor Dufflock.
Here.
Counselor Katie McMillan.
Here.
Counselor Wheeler.
Here.
Counselor Dennis McMillan.
Here.
Counselor Tenike.
Here.
Mayor Sype.
Please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This time we're looking for the approval of the agenda, looking for a motion and the current stands. One thing I would like to add though, is I did request we move the executive session into the open session. Right in the same.
But question from council. Last meeting we had an open session. All the meetings prior to that were all in executive session. My question is, if we have public comment tonight and we hear information that was disseminated in executive session, are we opening up our mirror to more challenges and issues down the road?
I kind of had the same thought because I was kind of, why did we have public comment if we were in an executive session? How, I don't know how that works. We haven't typically in a special council meeting had public comments. So I was kind of set back as well.
Yeah, we've never had public comment in a special meeting,
No,
to my knowledge.
One, we haven't voted yet, so technically. Like, kind of curious why there's public comment on the executive session line,
I requested open session last meeting and I'm requesting again.
but up until this point, we haven't voted it on yet, so it's still classified as executive session.
yeah, so I don't, like I said, when I seen the agenda come out, I thought that was kind of peculiar that we were gonna have public comment on an executive session meeting, because it's a special meeting. It isn't a standard meeting, and if there wants to be public comment, it's January, it's gonna be it.
Well, and I know that our last meeting, we did schedule for an executive or a special meeting.
Right.
But just to talk about an executive session.
Correct.
Mr. Frye, do you have a comment?
Yes, so typically you wouldn't have public comment at an executive session meeting. In fact, the meeting is transformed to public, doesn't change the nature of the meeting from its purpose. This meeting falls in a series of steps that the council's policies and procedures outline on page 7 of the policy manual. You've been following those steps. This step, which typically occur in executive session unless the individual wishes to have it in public,
Right.
Is to hear any further information that council brings to this meeting, including from Mayor Sype, to deliberate on each of the specific claims that you've addressed over the course of the past meetings, both from the city manager and response from Mayor Sype.
Right.
And now it's time to do that deliberation, consider the facts. And if you reach a conclusion, if there is a substantial violation on any of those, you may then determine what remedy you wish to impose.
So if we go through and have public comment, and if we hear information that was only disseminated in executive session, doesn't that create an issue and more future potential liability for our mayor? I'm trying to protect the mayor.
I mean, if you hear something that could only have been discussed in an executive session that wasn't moved to open session, but only executive session?
Well, the challenge that I have in my mind is that the only open hearing that we've had thus far, there wasn't much conversation that took place. And so the public should not have any of that information to speak about in public comment. And I'm concerned that we're opening Pandora's box and actually creating more liability, which is not what I want.
And your rules specifically prohibit disclosure of information that is discussed in executive session, disclosing that outside executive session. So, for example, when the city manager made his comments in support of his concerns about the mayor, those were all done in executive session.
That's exactly it. And so my thought is that we have all this all these folks here signed up for public comment. Obviously, the mayor's asked for public comment at this meeting. I suspect that the mayor and whoever else is supporting the mayor, you know, the conversations have been taking place. They want to speak to it, which, you know, and I fully appreciate the fact that this meeting is an open session. I believe that we should have been having these meetings in open session all along. And I don't believe that we would be here today if that was the case. I also want to make sure that if we have public comment, that the public, I mean, if they start talking about things that we've already discussed in an executive session, that's going to create more of an issue down the road for the mayor. And I don't know. And I'm concerned about that.
Councilman, if I may, I appreciate that concern, and it's reasonable to caution those who step forward to speak about that. You also have rules that prohibit any comments that can be construed to be abusive or slanderous, and so I think it's reasonable to caution anyone who makes comments to direct them specifically at actions and not at anything that might go to the reputation of someone.
Council, what's your guys' thoughts? Do you think we should continue with public comment or continue on with this session with our executive session not being public?
Personally, I don't believe that I'm going to hear anything new in character witness. I also I'm not interested in people telling me how to do my job. And so, you know, that's kind of my vote.
Can you make that a form of a motion?
She's asking council for a consensus.
Do you have a motion?
I don't hear a consensus.
Well, I have a question. So what you're saying is this can only be what we've already been talking about. The comments can only be what we've been talking about from our past. Meeting. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, Councilor, but I'm not understanding your statement.
No, I'm just saying this public meeting can only be about what we've already talked about in our last meeting. Is that right? That was brought up.
Well, as
In the
far
last
as
executive.
public comment referencing was
Yes,
the only thing that they should be able to talk about
is what we
is what was in the last.
that's what I
meeting.
meant.
And
Yeah.
that's all.
Okay.
Other than, you know, character witness, things like that, or just tell us that we're bad counselors and we're screwing up and not doing our job right, whatever. I'm not interested in hearing any of that myself personally.
Well, my only question was, again, we're having a special meeting and when it was published, it was executive session and I was merely asking why it's on there because we don't typically do that. It's just,
I was a little confused on
this is the first time I've ever seen the only agenda item. We don't even have a section in there for us to say anything or the mayor to say anything,
Right.
but we have a public comment. And that just seemed out of the ordinary for what we normally do. And I've learned that when you do things out of the ordinary, you typically do things that you can get yourself in hot water. So if it's not consistent with it, I wouldn't agree to having it on there. And that was my only thinking when I first seen it published. When it was published, it was going to be executive session. Now that the mayor has said it's open session, but it's already been published as executive session. Does that make sense?
Yes, make 2 points. If you permit comment, the comment is unrestrained by any subject.
Right.
So if you decide to permit comment, you can't limit it to a certain
Right.
topic. Okay. You can choose to change your agenda by vote if you want to. It's just up to council whether you want to be consistent with your recent prior special sessions. And not have comment or allow comment for this session as special session, which may be permitted under some.
Sorry, I don't see the need for the inconsistency. Because we've never done it.
I don't disagree.
I mean, council, anybody else?
So is there anywhere where it says like, this has been done before? Like, is this usual? I've done this for like quite a few years now, and I don't know, is this a usual thing?
I don't have firsthand knowledge of that. You can
Okay.
say in the recent past, there hasn't been comment in special session. In the further past, there may have been, and so I don't know when and under what circumstances they were committed. There's a reading of your rules that say that in special sessions, comments can be permitted. And it's really up to council to decide what to do.
Katie, we think.
I'm kind of leaning towards you guys if it's out of the norm, but I'm still fairly new to this as well, so I'm kind of getting a feel for what you guys.
I don't think it's gonna change the outcome. We have all the information we need for the, what's at hand, so, right, whether they speak or not. At the same time, it is kind of strange, but I don't think it's gonna, I mean, you know, we have the information we have.
And can I make a comment? I just want to comment that the last meeting, like, it got out of control, and I didn't appreciate people like coming in and attacking you, or a person coming in and attacking you like that. I didn't appreciate, that has never happened since I've been here. I didn't appreciate that. I didn't appreciate how heated it was, and I didn't appreciate the attacks. I felt like that people said, like, we're drinking the Kool-Aid. I don't appreciate that. I went home very upset, and I'm pretty sure that was the meeting I cried in. If not, it was the one before that. But I just don't like those attacks that we're drinking the Kool-Aid and we don't care, because, you know, I've lived here for many, many years and I definitely care. And I just don't want to see that and at all. And then for it to get raised, or, you know, it to get just out of control. That's the one thing that I will not.
Yeah.
I just don't want to deal with that. It was not fun, because I've seen people now coming, and I'm sorry, but I've seen people coming that have never come before. And they come in heated and then have made accusations to us, and they have never stepped in the other room before. So I just don't appreciate that, to come in and do that when they have never come. Or even approached me where I live or when I'm in the store. Please come and talk to me, but don't come in here and say that I drink the Kool-Aid and I don't care. Do not say that. No one should. Yeah, that's what I don't feel like dealing with actually today. So if we can act human and compassionate and I don't. That's
Okay.
all I have to say.
Going back to our last meeting, we scheduled a special meeting for an executive session only, so I feel like kind of the consensus is, it doesn't make sense to have an additional added item.
I
Okay, so then council this time looking for a motion, so whatever you guys decide.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that we would strike public comment from tonight's meeting.
Can I get a second for those, please?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. We need a vote to relinquish power and give it over to Ashley Wheeler for remaining of the open session for hearing the plan of this one. Make a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to turn over the reins of the meeting to, Counselor Ashley Lewis.
Thank you. I just second the motion.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Yeah, that's absolutely.
Okay, so at this time, we'll be working on delivery of Nancy. Is there anything that I need to take? Okay,
I did this order in the procedure, just to give you a reminder, the procedure is to consider any other information that any of the counselors bring, you know.
I'm sorry, Counsel, but I'm not understanding what you're saying.
Excuse me, now would be a time for counselors to offer any information that didn't come out in the last two hearings. Or Mayor Syke to present any information. For example, Mayor Syke sent an email to you
right.
and it had attachments to it. If you want to consider those, then you can ask you to do that. Following that, there should be an opportunity for Mayor Syke on the one hand and City Manager Stockdale on the other to make a statement about how they believe you ought to end up with this process.
Okay.
And I would encourage you to agree by vote to some kind of limitation on that.
So council, did you have the chance to both go over the email that Mayor sent as well as see the enterprise plan? You guys have to look at that, and if so, what were your thoughts surrounding those? Or any questions we have?
Yeah. And we had gotten that email before. We did have it. There's a lot of data there. And I understood what you were saying. I was a little confused about the AI summary stuff. Well, that's cool. But I'm like, that makes sense. But,
You know, all right, it's on.
no, I get it.
That's like a bit too better. Get it.
So, but having a computer kind of read the tone of somebody's email, I was like, I didn't know they could do that. That's amazing. It has. Swear how clear it is, you know? But I'm kind of a snarky guy. Hope I don't come across, maybe. I mean, I appreciate the information, the data that was in there.
And I did, as well, formally submit to you guys a text message exchange between me and I cannot remember I called his name, and have his contact in my phone for about 2 minutes.
Taylor.
Taylor, thank you. Yeah. Like I said, conversations were, for the most part, were engaged towards my interactions with the NHG guy who's working on getting vibrant solving on parent family businesses, things along those lines, nothing. Serious. When it was discussed, I pointed it towards, not necessarily Nancy and Kate, or any further conversation.
Right. The only other statement I have to make is, you know, honestly, before we get started on this, how do we get here? I mean, we could have had a conversation a long time ago that would have prevented a lot of this stuff. And there's a
5 months
process,
ago.
there's a process in place that we could have followed if I could, you know, shed a little light on things. David Stockdale's an employee. He's the employee of the 6 of us and the city. We, the 6 of us, the counselors, direct that. And there's a process if you have an issue with him, or if you see an issue there, whether it's Mr. Stockdale or one of the administrators, the process. The employee committee and follow through those steps, and when it goes through, it works through the process that comes to council, and then we look at where we're at. That's my understanding of it, and I may be all wet, but that's just my understanding of reading the charter and reading also, you know, our rules and policies. I could be all wrong, but it would be nice if we would have had a conversation prior to, but here we are. And with that, you know, we do have an employee, we don't have an elected official. So we have to be mindful of what HR looks, what is, he's got rights as an employee. We have, liability that could be associated with that. And if one of us, the reason why those policies were drawn up, and I believe the charter was done in 07, I believe, is that what I read? In 07, and then our policies and stuff, we revamped it in the last 5 or 6 years or so. But I think most of it's been written many years ago. That's our charter. And the reason why they did that, and I was part of this, we had mayors and councilmen that would go up to city workers as they were working, saying, hey, you go fix that pothole, or hey, the mayor would drive up and say, hey, you got to do this. Well, that puts a bad light on those people, and we kind of had to curb that, and most cities do that. We don't have unbridled access to city employees. That's not how it works. There's a process in place. We don't. And when I was mayor, I understood that I couldn't just knock on his door or their door and have that conversation. It was a process. If I thought there was something wrong, went through the process.
I was already clear as well that I was, at the time, these were meetings that me and David set aside. These were not phone calls. These were not any times that were out of these driving ties.
Sure.
Very clear. These were our regular scheduled meetings. So me and him sat down and conversed together.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, 100%. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do these times. But no,
I'll make it clear.
yeah, I didn't mean it for that at all. And I didn't mean to call him at 2 o'clock in the morning saying, hey, why is the lights off and whatever. I'm not.
No, if a problem comes up, is all he's saying. All you're saying is basically when a problem like that comes up, just to bring it to the council and look at an open discussion about it or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, those rules are there for reasons, because we operate as a team. To be honest, I've been on council now for like 7 years, and I haven't always seen eye to eye with city councilors and mayors, but we work together as a team to go, hey, this is frustrating. How do we get through this? Because all of us are the unified board of the city of Umatilla, and we want to see this go forward. And I mean, I would honestly hate it if we all had the same perspective. That would be a little concerning, because then I think we're not a good representation of all of our citizens. So what I think Darren is also trying to say is, if there are struggles, if there are questions, if there are concerns, we want you to understand that we want to work together with you. We don't want it to get blown out of proportion. We don't want lawyers to get involved. We want to be able to cordially go, okay, like we have to work through this.
So I also want to clarify that as well, is that I didn't bring forward the complaint. Steve was talking about doing things against me, not the other way around. So-
May I suggest, possibly with that, we continue with a bit of a structured process.
Right.
That won't devolve into
Right.
something that's just where you want to go.
Correct. I
So I think, if you included the process of taking more information, then the next step is to look at each of the specific items in the complaint and address those as you wish to. Well, actually, I apologize. That's, I think the next step is to permit the mayor or city manager to make a statement about what has occurred over the last number of meetings. Then we'll go item by item. Okay. And so there shouldn't be interruption back by the mayor in your deliberations or by the city manager in deliberations. That makes sense.
I apologize. It just, you know, as Fern said, and I know I'm gonna go off the rails a little bit, but it's very emotional. And I'll suggest there probably isn't anybody up here that has slept very good in the last week or so. 2 panic attacks today, and so I don't like this at all. And I work in a prison for a living, so this is scarier than that, so. Because you guys are our neighbors, you're our friends, we've seen you guys, we see you in the stores, and we're sitting in a position that is very uncomfortable. very, very.
So council, in regards to that, just
Sorry.
before we move on, the additional information that we did get the last week between the enterprise meeting and the, do you guys have anything you want to discuss on that or any questions in regards to those? Hearing none, we'll move on to each party making a statement. Council, would you like to have like each party for like 15 minutes? Would you like to have for 5 minutes?
I think 10 minutes is appropriate.
And who gets to go first?
I think, in my world, it would be the person lodging a complaint, goes first, followed by the individual defending. So that would be.
Mayor Council, thank you again for the opportunity to be here tonight. I'll keep my comments quite brief. Really kind of direct you to the memo that John Stride just in the opening paragraph. It mentions that because the mayor is an elected official who does not report to the city manager, the only recourse for the city manager to raise complaints about the mayor's conduct is to bring them to the council. So through the course of the beginning of the year, then coming to the time in which I issued the memo, there were several occurrences that occurred. Majority of those are in the complaint here. It was mentioned earlier, I'm employed of the city. I have my duties as established by both the charter and the code, and by my employment agreement that talks about fulfilling my role as the city manager. One of those roles is to support the will and the decisions of the council. And so several times over the first 6 months or so of the year, I felt that I was placed in a situation that was really sort of a no-win situation where I'm in a meeting or participating on the city's behalf and expressing the decisions of the council, will of the council, the goals that have been adopted and so on. While at the same time, expressions both from the mayor and from others in those meetings were contrary to that. Now, we can have a discussion, there's been lots of discussion about First Amendment rights and freedom of speech, and maybe that's all well and good, and that can be a discussion for another day. I'm talking about, I have a responsibility to carry out your decision. And the way that I read the policies, and if they're unenforceable, we can talk about that. But the way that I read the policies, it states that each of you are to support the majority rule of the council. I think mayor's made comments that the two are mutually exclusive, that if he has opinions that are separate than yours, that carte blanche is allowed, and there's no recourse available for that. Maybe that's true. But at the same time, he also has a duty in the charter and in the code to, and in your adopted policies, to support staff. There's a way in which that you can very much go about the business of saying, I disagree with what the council has done. I disagree with the decisions that are there. And I'm going to use my mantle that I have as mayor to use the power of influence that I have in my responsibility and see where that goes, while at the same time supporting staff, saying comments that could or should have been made. Dave was doing his job. He was doing the things that we asked him to do. These are contracts of the city. These are properties of the city. You can state both. They are not mutually exclusive. And that was sort of the nexus of the majority of the complaint that's here. The other issues, I'll also state kind of at the foundation of it all is, I've heard comments about how this just is all so how, we heard it here. How did we get here? It's so minimal. And I would even argue that, or I would even agree that there's no argument there, this is relatively trivial. I had concerns. I did what the recourse I have available to me, which was go bring that before the council president, which I did, who instructed me that these were alarming as well. Put it in a memo and send it to all of us, which I did. And we've tried to talk about those along the way. And you can have a discussion about how it's taken this long, but it's taken this long to have that discussion. Some of my concerns here is, Mayor talked about, the Blue Mountain complaint. Nothing to do with him, had to do with his family, helping his family. I don't dispute any of that. I do sort of question if your family's doing it and your mom is sending the text messages, why are you now the one sitting down and having the meeting? That seems peculiar to me. Why is it when I get feedback later on from representatives from Blue Mountain, am I hearing that they sat down with the mayor, not Cadensight? Why is it that when that happens afterward, our new franchisee now has an appeal to the state that occurs based upon information that they said they gained from that meeting? These are all questions that are there. And even if that's not a policy violation, and maybe it's not, is it a good idea that while the city is actively negotiating and in creating new contracts with new franchisees, to sit down essentially and give information to somebody for your goal, say, you have adopted goals that we're trying to bring in broadband, and then to almost immediately have that meeting that could potentially hinder that. So I felt that the information that I brought to you was relevant and should be something that you should be aware of. Nowhere in my complaint did I ever make any sort of idea that there was going to be coming from the mayor or trying to remove. That's not part of this in any way, shape, or form. I simply state, here's the policies, here's why I have a concern, here's some background as to why I believe what happened. If I can't bring this to your attention, what remedies do I have? What recourse is available to me? If I'm sitting in meetings with partners, customers, potential clients, so on, investors in the city, developers, and in either those same meetings or other meetings, the work that I'm doing is being undercut by discussions that are occurring, you're setting me up for failure. I'm carrying out the directives that you've given me, and that is the responsibility of you is to create budget, policy, pass and provide directives, and mine is to carry those out in the day-to-day operations of management, both contracts of the city and facilities of the city. And I was doing exactly that. And I brought the information to you. That's my comment.
Thank you. Mayor.
Thank you for the opportunity to present. Since I have previously paid for my attorney's representation and travel, you refused to allow my attorney to present. I've chosen to save funds and speak for myself this evening. I have prepared a statement and request you hear in full without interruptions regarding complaint number 1, in reference to the alleged interference with staff consideration of a general obligation bond to fund construction of the new police station. Mr. Strike claims that the city council supported an investigation of the general obligation bond on May 17th, 2024. However, the meeting minutes from the date make no mention of the bond, obligations, or related discussions.
May I jump in just a while, Council Leader? I'm not claiming,
Okay.
I'm making no claims at all.
I understand.
I'm not part of it. I represent the council and the lawyer for the council.
Perfect. While an executive session occurred, it concerned a real estate transaction, not a bond. Oregon law allows closed door meetings for real estate deals, but not for financial matters like a bond. Discussing a bond in that executive session would have violated public meeting records and ethics laws. Oregon law forbids final decisions in closed door meetings. Any consensus reached privately must be formally announced in an open meeting. There's no record of the council ever approving a bond, or directing staff to consider a bond for the police station. So I haven't acted against their decision by sharing with Dave privately that I didn't support the bond. Sharing my opinion and supporting facts is not coercion, interference, or undermining the city manager. I'm entitled to my thoughts and to share them. The document that I shared simply reviewed newspaper articles about the city projects and commented on their status. My personal opinion is that the city has ample funds to build a new police station without a bond. Bonds should be a last resort, not used when we simply prioritize other spending over essential needs. Through the newspaper articles listed, I showed Dave that the city hasn't finished many of the projects, making a bond request now seem irresponsible. I personally wouldn't support it. I believe the community would react negatively. I fully support the police station. I just think that we should use our own budget to pay for it. In this case, my First Amendment rights do not stop once I'm elected. The only reason my private thoughts, that's the reason why I shared my private thoughts directly with Dave, the person we're supposed to speak with about our concerns, questions, and thoughts. So publicly now, he is interpreting them as something other than what they were, my personal opinions. I personally believe this complaint should be fully dismissed. Regarding complaint number 2, in which I'm alleged to be attempting influence from Blue Mountain Telecom. This allegation is ridiculous. I provided a text message showing I was simply being friendly and welcoming a young tech guy to the town. He brought his boss, and we tried to discuss the businesses. I redirected them to Dave and Nancy. This complaint is baseless and a waste of everyone's time. It's simply another example of City Manager Stockdale's ongoing harassment with false narratives fueled by his unfounded assumptions and the lack of proper investigation. We all live in a small town. Are you honestly claiming that none of you ever have conversations about the weather, about sports, about life in general, with anyone who has business with the city? It would be impossible to avoid. Ashley, you're an Amazon influencer. By Dave's logic, I'd be better not talking with you. Rourke, you worked for Simplot for how long? We don't do a lot of business, or don't we as a city do a lot of business with Simplot? We're not business with you anymore. Darren, your businesses have made money off of Rock the Walks at city event. That did not talk to you anymore. I could keep going, and it would be pretty ridiculous, and just like this allegation. I believe this must be dismissed without further action. Regarding complaint number 3, which I'm alleged to have 1, attended a meeting organized by the city manager and at the city manager's invitation. 2, criticizes the city manager for making immoral decisions. 3, not responding to assertions the city manager and not the city council was responsible for the enterprise zone planning application. I find this one to be very difficult. I admit I did attend the meeting, was invited to. I do believe the meeting was organized by city manager David Stockwell. As the mayor, it's my job to lead the city council meetings, but in this instance, it was the city hosted event. City manager Dave led the discussion and failed to establish any rules for public input. Therefore, anyone presented had the right to freely speak, as they did. The meeting included various attendees, both representing taxi districts and the general public, as well as many participated remotely. Most attendees were unhappy with how the enterprise zone management handles tax funds. While there's no legal obligation to share this money, many felt it was morally imperative to do so. This highlighted the idea that what is legally permissible isn't always right. As the mayor, I have responsibility to lead the council meetings, but I'm also a citizen of my own opinions. I do not give up my civil rights to become the mayor, and I still have a First Amendment right to freedom of speech. I understand I shouldn't speak to the council without their direction. So I clearly stated that my views on the lack of financial sharing with taxing districts were my own. Article 1, Section 8 of the Oregon Constitution states, no law shall be passed restraining the free expression of opinion or restricting the rights to speak, write, or print freely on any subject whatever. I have a right to express my personal opinions, even as the mayor. Any attempt to punish me for exercising freedom of speech would be a violation of my civil rights, as our council rules cannot supersede those rights. While I didn't defend the city manager regarding enterprise zone fund allocation, he's a highly paid city official who is capable of speaking for himself and didn't ask for my intervention. This allegation is confusing because I saw no reason to rescue him. Under my tenure as mayor, the city council hasn't had a major discussion on how enterprise zones were used. We haven't compared various other examples to see what we might want to do differently. We haven't had a work session on this topic, despite concerns raised by various taxing districts. I expressed my own opinion about the lack of financial acknowledgement, and I'm awaiting further discussion on this and potential solutions from the council. Attempting to restrict my right to freedom of speech violates my civil rights, so this complaint should be dismissed. Instead of focusing on the city manager's personal grievances, we should consider how our handling of enterprise zone funds appear to our other taxing districts. It's time to reevaluate our actions and prioritize operations instead of attacking those with differing views. I believe this allegation should be dismissed. Finally, regarding point 4, where I submitted an annual evaluation where I scored the city manager differently than the rest of you. This complaint is baseless waste of taxpayer money, resulting in the city manager's exaggerated reaction to my unused evaluation survey with no real consequences. I was handed a form, I filled it out, it wasn't used, I didn't make any attempt to force to use it. The entire situation highlights a serious procedural issue within our city, a lack of formal complaint resolution process, a reliance on internal staff to conduct investigations whenever also the person making the complaint, and an overall lack of due process, all of which is the city manager filed, investigated, and seemingly judged no complaints against an elected official, but proper council oversight or due process. This lack of fair and transparent process is concerning and reflects poorly on the city. The original document listed 18 original possible violations, yet now we're whittled down to 4. There have been no public actions by the council to accept the complaint, to investigate the complaint, or to reduce the complaint. So who eliminated all the other areas and on what grounds? None of these actions be taken in executive session. Therefore, how did it happen? Where is the process? Further, the lines between the mayor and the council are clear in the charter. The city has inconsistently defined the mayor's role, sometimes treating as a council member and sometimes not. The lack of clarity must be addressed. The voters elected me as mayor, the head of our city government, which involves engaging with the community on important city matters and expressing political opinions. Since February of my first year in office, when you raised an agenda item asking me about why I was asking so many questions, you tried to.
Okay, at this point, council will go into deliberating on each complaint. I'll do them one at a time. Take a look at the relevant rules, and then also there's going to be options. Mr. Shine. Do you want to summarize the complaint one, or just have me go over what's being stated in that?
I think the best thing is to speak to what is in that, and if you want to read that as to what you're considering and what the relevant rule violation.
Okay, so complaint number 1, the summary states, Mayor Sarah interfered with a staff consideration of a general obligation bond to fund construction of a new police station as At its May 7th, 2024 meeting, council supported the staff investigation of this option. In meetings with the city manager, mayor criticized Mr. Stockdale's past performance and questioned the job security in an attempt to influence Mr. Stockdale to stop investigating the general obligation bond option. Council, do you have anything that you want to talk about or questions in regards to that?
Well, I was kind of curious, is Mayor brought up that it was illegal for us to talk about bond during executive session. Is that right? She said. I believe you said that. Well, I Googled it. And AI told me that bond discussions during executive session refers to a situation where a governing body like a city council or school board would hold a private meeting, executive session to discuss potential bond issues. So nowhere does it say that it's illegal. It creates confidentiality for sensitive information, legal requirements, limitations, so forth.
Well, I know, for what I heard as well when we were discussing that before, Mayor had also referenced hearing from other people that a bond would not do well, and to which that question came up that, well, this is an executive session, how are we having a discussion about this publicly?
Correct.
Mr. Strike, can I make a comment in rebuttal or must I stay silent?
That's up to the council. The procedure is that you said your piece and the city manager said his piece.
That's up
And
to
so
you.
if we allow rebuttal throughout,
I don't have a problem with rebuttal. I mean, I think it's fair and part of the process.
Well, I think with the due diligence, the US or due process support,
Yeah.
we provided that opportunity, that was what we're asking for, all the questions.
Fair,
This is our opportunity to discuss amongst councilors.
fair enough.
Counselor Miller. Do you have any questions in regards to this line or any thoughts? No.
The relevant rules.
Yeah, I was just.
Do you have anything?
No, not right yet. I'm fine with them for processing.
So our rules in our charter as well, like, so we have council policies as well as the charter. So the first one stating, no council member may directly or indirectly attempt to force the manager in administrative decisions regarding city property or contracts, which is in our charter, chapter 7. Our code states council members' function is policy making and not administrative. Our council policy states the mayor shall adhere to the policy of a non-interference of day-to-day city business, which is directed by the city manager. And our council policy states the mayor should respect the administrative functions and refrain from actions that would undermine the administrative authority of the city manager. Like me to go over the remedy options, we can go discuss that. Counselor?
I think it's a good idea.
Okay, so resolutions are the council were to pass a resolution restricting the mayor's interaction with the city manager to the mayoral functions specifically set out in our rules. Excuse me. Censure. The council could vote to censor the mayor, which would be a public statement admonishing the mayor for engaging in conduct and violating the rules, or no action the council could conclude there is no be warranted. Thoughts on the information that has been provided to us as well as hearing.
I think something needs to be done because, while personally I can't say that, either one of them necessarily did anything, you know, it's just all alleged. The fact is, there's some kind of beef between the two, at least, you know, and so I almost think that, maybe when they are meeting together, it'd be recorded from now on, is that a possibility? So that, if something were to arise, we would have like a witness there, so to speak. I don't know.
I can understand that point of view, because I know initially when Stockdale brought this to us, it was also in regards to like the tone and other things that were said that felt more like a threat to him. And so if we did have some form of, just like what we do with our council meetings, like have some sort of recording, so we can
Yeah.
refer back to that.
And that way we can see exactly what's the place, if something did, you know.
But you don't have to see it all the
Right, yeah, just if something.
Council, I am trying to interrupt you just real quick, I'm so sorry. If I could, I'd like to ask if you could reconsider mayor's request for a rebuttal statement. I think there's value in limiting us to maybe a minute each. And maybe each of these one by one, so you can discuss and prioritize those. I think that, at least for me personally, there were comments that he presented that I'd like to respond to, and I'm sure that there's maybe more that he'd like to respond from mine and maybe clarify some of his own, but I'd just like to echo his request as well.
I'm fine with it.
I don't disagree.
Is that something that we can do? I just want to make sure we're abiding by respective laws.
You can do that. You can consider further comments. You may want to limit the time on the end. Make sure that they're using their comments judiciously, not on every issue.
Sorry.
You need the formal declaration.
No.
So in, just so we can keep formality with that, would it be wise to summarize, allow us to kind of debrief on each complaint and then give them each a moment to make a comment and then we proceed with decision making?
That would.
Yes, okay.
I like that.
Nancy, can I request a statement?
Mayor, I know that you wanted to mention something earlier. Would you like to?
Unfortunately, it's escaped my mind.
Okay.
That's why I'm requesting these papers for the notes. But no, I've got no comments in regards to what Mr. Stockdale's saying.
Okay. Mr. Sutton, did you have something you wanted to?
Prior to your statement, I would like to respond to part of this that I don't know was adequately expressed. And that is, and there was a reference to it, you know, in the tone of the meeting. And when Mr. Syke is criticizing Mr. Stockdale's past performance and questioning Mr. Stockdale's job security, you know, the way that came about, my understanding was, you know, there's an election coming up and we don't know, you know, what's going to happen in that election and something to the effect of, I don't know if I'm going to be able to save your job. I mean, that's very inflammatory. That's very, that's that part right there is what really stood out to me. And I just want to make sure that is expressed in the complaint summary, that is noted.
And also, I just want again to reiterate that Mr. Stockdale's an employee and he has rights under bowling and he has rights under he has rights. And so we need to be mindful of how we engage with that. We have to follow a process in place. If we were to do something and have a tone against somebody and they were to file a hostile work environment or something of that nature towards the city, that's a big liability. So we as counselors and as elected officials still have to be mindful in addressing those individuals. They're not excused from that process. Please remember that.
Right.
Yes.
I wanted to just take 1 minute to clarify. I agree, Mayor's correct, you did not take any action in executive session, you didn't have to, you already did. You approved the annual budget, which has consulting line item in the budget. You approved the policy, which is our procurement policy on how to go about getting consultants or any other contract according to the city, according to that policy. I followed both your budget and your policy. I had the administrative authority to bring on a consultant to run that. I didn't know if that was gonna be a decision that was going to be questioned later on. And rather than deal with that on the back end of that decision, I felt it prudent to deal with it on the front end. It's appropriate while we were talking about in that executive session about the procurement of adjacent property to talk about ways in which we fund not only that procurement, but what our goal is with city property after that, which is what we did.
I would like, Finance saying, yes, I recall the conversation, and in that conversation, me and Mr. Stockdale spoke about that. I did recommend to him that we continue to go through looking into it, and pursuing it, and going out and actually assuring that we actually look into the process all the way before we have to go on. I've been utilizing that consultant pool. Said that in the meeting. I mean,
Now, would we reach a conclusion, or do you want to discuss further?
Well, my personal opinion is I don't think we need to censor anyone,
No.
but maybe a resolution that we, make sure and have a better understanding of what the expectation between the communication the city manager and the mayor has, only because it outlines it in our charter, it outlines it in our policy, so we just need to make sure we adhere to that. It's specific there, so as long as it involves the mayor and what the duties of the mayor and the interactions with the city manager, to me, that's sufficient. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I believe that it's absolutely imperative that the mayor and the city manager have open course of dialogue. I mean, it's absolutely imperative. It needs to happen. So, but I agree with Councilman McMillan that going forward, I think it's in everybody's best interest to either have cameras or a witness to sit in this meeting so that we don't end up here again. If there's an issue or a problem, that we can go back to those records, documents, statements, however, in order to rectify the situation. I believe that that's a good idea.
I just don't want to expose us to liability. That's my own.
Mr. Strike, I know that we have. Should we just wait to go through all of the complaints and then decide and approve what we need to, or should we?
For one.
One by one?
I think it might be easier if you decided after each deliberation what remedy you want to have within. And so if you are looking to have a remedy that the mayor and the city manager, when they meet, they're accompanied by a third party who it takes notes and witnesses the conversation. You can pass a resolution to that effect.
So do we have to make a motion to do that? We're in an executive session, but
You're not an executive.
oh, that's right. Oh, perfect.
Nancy, for these resolutions, do we need to have some number item, or can we just classify them as resolution?
It can be made by motion and then formalized through a resolution.
No, no, never.
You can make the motion now, and then we bring it back in a resolution to be formalized. Right.
Madam Chair, I make a recommendation or I make a motion that we approve resolution. First one, council should pass a resolution in open session restricting mayor's interaction with the city manager to the mayoral functions specifically set out by the rules and inviting a third party.
Nancy,
One moment, please. So motion to restrict the mayor's interaction with the city manager by having a witness in meetings with them. Is that accurate?
And
I think it was said differently, if I may.
Yeah.
There was
the functions specifically set out by the rules.
And that's, I think it's, as the resolution is written.
Yeah.
Restricting the mayor's interaction with the city manager to the mayoral functions specifically set out by the rules.
Right.
And in interactions, a third party is present.
Correct.
to witness them. Is that correct?
Correct.
Counselor?
Yes.
You need a second?
Yes, please.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Point number two, summary states Mayor Site met with the representative of Blue Mountain Telecom at the representative's request at a time when the city manager and staff were considering broadband providers, including Blue Mountain Telecom, to provide city services. Thereafter, Blue Mountain Telecom, current franchisee, through its representatives, questioned the city's actions concerning another franchisee for a similar service. That was the summary. So the relevant rules in this one states, in our code, council members' functions is policy making and not administrative. Council policies, the mayor shall adhere to the policy of non-interference of day-to-day city business, which is directed by a city manager. And again, our policy, council policy states the mayor should respect the administrative functions and refrain from actions that would undermine the administrative authority of the city manager.
Can I make a rebuttal? So, yep, real quick on city council members' function, I would be clear that this is one of the rules on which I'm talking about for my letter, or my statement earlier, is in this case, am I a council member or am I not a council? Because we have two different rules basically saying the same thing twice under code 164 versus the mayor should respect administrative functions. In this case, it'll be very clear that one of the main functions of my job as mayor is the political head figure of the city. And with Dave's comment earlier about if I were to go out and have a conversation on broadband, I would be pursuing our goals, not going against them. That would be something that we would want to do as a political head figure of the city. Why would I not want to sit down and have a conversation about communications? I don't know. But I'm very clear and I'll reiterate that I did not make any statements talking about any actions that happened at the city that weren't on public record. And to refer them to David answer my question. I agree.
I'll be quick. Of course, each of you are encouraged, strongly encouraged to meet with constituents and to hear from the community and so on. The question here is administrative functions. So meeting with the community, meeting with constituents, hearing their complaints, hearing about the things they want to see. That's gathering information. And you have protocols in your rules, what you're supposed to do with that information, which is to send that back to the city manager to gather that information and then or present that at a city council meeting. So to take those meetings, that was an administrative function. The mayor doesn't have administrative responsibilities, nowhere in the charter, nowhere in the code.
I would just like to, open comment with, you know, as elected officials, we oftentimes, find ourselves in these types of situations. It is so easy to trip over the slightest little detail and end up in a situation like this. And I empathize with the situation because I know how easily it happens. And I think that, with, you know, this is our opportunity to discuss it, that, if, I believe that potentially, you know, you were, you know, fairly new in your position, and trying to, do what it is that the mayor's elected to do, and I get that. Challenges, not tripping over our own feet, and it, like I said, it happens so easily, and I think one of the main, outcomes from this particular way is that, you know, we really need to be cognizant of the fact that, and in this particular situation, we had balls in the air with communications that we were having, and it ended up being a problem, and it ended up being a big problem. And so, at the very least, we have to have this discussion about, you know, how easy it is for us to get in trouble, to get sideways, to get tipped over, and to have issues. And not to just gloss over it, like, oh, it was not, you know, that's, I get it that we're running it, and I get it that you're trying to do a good thing. But at the same time, you know, I think it's just super important for all of us to understand, how careful we have to be.
I'll share a little history with me. There's a lot of times when I was mayor, I got a lot of scrutiny because of the business that we own. And they could care less, me being Darren Dufflock, than running a strip club. But as soon as I became mayor and owned the strip club, it was a big deal. You're always going to be the mayor. It doesn't matter. You can run down the street right now, act all crazy. They're not gonna say, oh, there's Kate inside being crazy again. They're gonna say the mayor of Umatilla did that. Because that's how it works. I had multiple meetings with Amazon. They didn't invite me because I'm such a great guy. They invited me because I'm the mayor. And I brought the city manager with me. So there's a lot of times when you're representing yourself and you're in the public, and I get it. But people see you as the mayor. People see me as a coach. It's just how it is. When I was a baseball coach, they see me as coach. So in my mind, I can't shed that smoke. It's just no different. You have a family member that's in a position that's very well known. And she's seen as that position 90% of the time. And it's difficult to separate it. We can say all we want that this is my opinion, but the community is going to hear that what you say is from the mayor. So when you have that, it's undue influence. It's just part of the game. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that that's how it is.
It doesn't get rid of your person, but it definitely leaves an impression with the community.
Well, I think in this scenario, with this point too, thing in question here is, should we as counselors be setting out and essentially doing administrative stuff, or is that what we're hiring our city staff to do?
Correct.
Maybe in this code, we need to add mayor. If it's not in there, it sounds like it's not in there.
Well,
And the code wants to dash 6-1.
Well, this is
Oh, so it's technology.
and I, trust me, I went through the same process when I became mayor. It was a big learning curve for me, understanding what a weak mayor system is. And everybody, if you understand what a weak mayor system is, they don't It's different than in another position where they're paid. So they don't have a lot of authority, they have a lot of influence, and they run the meetings, and there's a guideline for it, that we have that's how the system is worked out. Sorry.
I have a quick question, talk about. This is a question for Mr. Stride. Mr. Stride, what would you define as an administrative task within the city?
I can't, I'm not in a position to define administrative, Mr. Mayor. It's defined within the scope of your charter, policies, and code. You could quite easily look to documents that outline the city manager's responsibilities and find that everything that falls outside of policy and operating the city is administrative.
Council, do you have any other, discussion? Like to have on point number 2? Hearing none, our remedy options are as follows. Okay, the council could vote to censure the mayor, which would be a public statement admonishing the mayor for engaging in conduct in violation of the rules. Second, statement of caution. Even if the council finds no actual interference, the council could vote to caution the mayor, stating that he's meeting with individuals or companies for any purpose, sorry. That are engaged in discussions with the city regarding potential city contracts may influence or have the appearance of influencing ongoing negotiations. The better practice is to avoid such meetings or interactions. And our third is no action. As concluded that there's no remedy.
Kind of like Darren was saying, I think I would just go with the caution, you know, just the mayor's kind of. Be cautious in the future.
And I would agree that, and it says even if council finds no actual interference, I believe that there was interference, but I don't believe it was intended. And that I believe that, you know, caution to the mayor, you know, and any future meetings of these type, you know, I believe that it's a great idea to invite the city manager to come along if you're invited to a meeting to bring the manager with you, things like that, or to at least have that discussion with the city manager prior to taking that meeting to make sure that, you know, if there isn't pertinent information that you're potentially aware of that you need to take with you to that meeting.
Right, I mean, it reminds me of what Councilor Funberg was doing. I know we were at the city council conference, but she would be talking with someone, and as they would start to go, hey, actually, even until I've been wanting to have a discussion with you, she's like, let me get my city manager. And then she'd come over and it sounded like she was his assistant being like, okay, so you've got to talk to this person and this person, and I've got this form for you, and like, here you go. And I kind of feel like that's really what you're referring to is if we hear those conversations, like, okay, hold on, time out. maybe it's time for that.
We have to do a statement of caution. We have to be cautious. We have to be careful.
Council, does anyone else oppose or agree with the statement of caution? You know, how we move forward? I agree. Nancy, this one doesn't state, we need some sort of resolution.
It would just be I move to vote to caution the mayor stating that his meetings with individuals or companies for any purported reason that are engaged in discussions with the city regarding potential city contracts may influence or have the appearance of influencing ongoing negotiations. The better practice is to avoid such meetings or interactions. So everything, it would be, I move to caution instead of vote.
Council, do I have a motion?
I would make the motion that we give them a statement of caution for this. Complaint.
Nancy, is that sufficient?
The rest of so everything after vote would be the sufficient motion.
Okay, so for complaint two, I'd like to make a motion to stay of caution. Council plans interference, council.
There you go.
Okay. Even if council plans no interference, the council could vote caution on the mayor, stating that meetings with individuals, companies, for any purported reasons that are engaged in any discussions with the city regarding potential city contracts may influence or have the appearance of influencing ongoing negotiations. The better practice is to avoid such meetings or interactions.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Complaint number 3. So I guess it's the mayors have attended a meeting among taxing districts at city manager education. The purpose of this meeting, which was organized by the city manager, was to discuss enterprise zone funds and the allocation of those funds to the taxing districts. At the meeting, the mayor publicly criticized the city manager for making immoral decisions and did not respond to assertions that the city manager and not the city council was responsible for it. I think on relevant rules as of right now, or do you want to? Relevant rules are as follows. We have 2 under our council policies. The mayor shall adhere to the policy of non-interference in day-to-day city business, which is directed by the city manager. And our second one is the mayor shall respect the administrative function of the city manager and refrain from actions that would undermine the administrative authority of the city manager. Discussion or your please.
I do. So I just wanted to reiterate and emphasize for that meeting. That meeting was chief appointed officials from taxing districts and their respective chair, or for the city's purpose, that's the mayor. It was not a public meeting. It's a private meeting. Anyone from the public that would have attempted to walk in would have been told not to attend and that they need to leave. Mayor introduces himself immediately in that meeting, 3 minutes in, says that he's the mayor of Umatilla. He says it again at 1 hour and 25 minutes that he's the mayor of Umatilla. He says it another time towards the end of the meeting as the mayor of Umatilla. He states it several times throughout the meeting. It's quite clear. The mayor was invited. He acknowledges that he was the mayor of the meeting. He stated that I didn't establish any ways in which to speak. That's not true as well. I created a preamble to the meeting and said when each organization would have an opportunity to speak, we'd go around the horn. It's difficult. Caden Site citizen was not invited to that meeting. Mayor Caden Site was invited to that meeting.
My rebuttal to that is, I understand that's what he's saying. However, Oregon statute, Oregon state law says that I do get to declare, like I'm speaking as myself individual, and when I'm speaking on behalf of the city, I was speaking on behalf of my belief that David Stockdale runs the city's enterprise zones in an unethical and immoral way. I believe that as a person, not the mayor. That's not the belief of the council. That's not the belief of anyone up here, other than mine.
As stated, citizen Caden Site wasn't invited to that meeting. And thus, citizen Caden Site's comments are inappropriate at that meeting.
Recently, council, you elected me to be a part of a task force. That there are only few people that have been invited to attend. And in fact, I had one of those meetings today. And immediately when we began, they say, state your name and your official capacity, to which I completely forgot for a second. I stated it's the holiday season, but we further went into it based on our positions. And never at that point in that meeting could I have said, okay, yeah, I'm here as this, I was invited as this, but now as actually Wheeler citizen, this is this, I disagree with this, I would never be invited to that meeting again. And I think that's also not being cordial for us as citizens to be able to participate in those meetings if we're switching hats in those different capacities. And I think it also, my concern with that as well is it starts to destroy the relationships perhaps that we have with these other partners as well. Council, do you have any comments?
Well, as I said earlier, we don't have the luxury of pulling off our elected official hat, in my opinion. Whenever I'm at the store, I'm approached by people, not because I'm Darren Dufflock, but because I'm the council. And I don't have the luxury of I don't care what anybody says, you have to censor yourself. You have to. You have an obligation to your elected position. And you have an obligation to the city as per our charter and our rule to, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. That's kind of the rule. I know in law enforcement, you're 24/7. You don't have the luxury of saying, I'm not a cop today. Oh, no, I don't see that. So there's certain positions that you have in life that I agree, you do have First Amendment rights under certain conditions, but in a meeting where the public is not involved and they're not invited, we don't have that luxury. You can say all you want, this is my opinion, then that's the opinion of the mayor, Katie Sack.
No, I agree. The First Amendment is one of the most powerful amendments we have, and freedoms we enjoy, but when, Mayor Katie Sack was invited, it wasn't open to the public session. You've got to, stick to being in the mayor room in that kind of situation.
Councilor Wheeler, may I comment? I think I just heard the mayor say that he described his statement at that meeting. I wrote it down, that the city manager runs the city in an unethical and immoral way. That's what I believe he just said, and claims that he has the free speech rights to do so. I want the council to understand that slander is not considered free speech. And challenging someone's morals or ethics in a public way exposes the city to potential claims. And so I just want to caution the council in how you use your language in an unprotected and potentially a way that creates risk for the council.
Thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Stripe. And I know I just attended a training for counselors, the essentials, elected essentials training, which is for all new counselors, but also at this point, they were even stating how laws have been changed since last year and how here's the updates. And I was like, wow, this isn't something that we just need to go to one time. It should be something we should consistently go to. And that was a lot of what they talked about defamation or any sort of potential things that could expose the city to litigation. So thank you for reminding us of that. Did anyone, because I know we've heard comment from both Stockdale and Mayor Syke about this complaint. There was a link to the recording so we could view it. Counselors, did you watch that?
Yes.
Yes.
Based on the claim that Mr. Stockdale has stated, do you feel like, what were your thoughts? Do you feel like represented? Do you feel like there was concerns for staff or our city manager?
I was kind of embarrassed, to be honest.
Agreed, yeah.
We have a lot of city people, a lot of partners that are on that meeting, and that was not a good representation of our city. It was, lack of a better term, it was very embarrassing.
It was. I would like to say that, I appreciate it, Manager Dave Stockdale putting that meeting together. I think it was very important. And I think it was an important first step in opening dialogue. The deal that fell off the card later in the meeting, and it's, in my opinion, you can't get out of here. It's unfortunate. I know that all parties are extremely passionate, and I appreciate that. Absolutely, I appreciate that. But and with that passion, things we can have runaways, and it is what it is. And it was an unfortunate outcome, in my opinion. The way it all stood out, the way it all went. And I would really be disappointed if, due to that you know, that growth, but I think that it's important for those conversations to continue for obviously. And that's all I have to say about the meeting.
And to me, the remedy options, I think that it's really, this is a hard one for me.
Do you have any other comments or things you'd like to discuss on complaint 3? Hearing none, I'll go into the remedy options. We have 2 resolutions. Our first one is the council could pass a resolution in open session restricting the mayor's interaction with the city manager to the mayoral functions specifically set out in the rules. Our second resolution is the council could pass a resolution prohibiting the mayor from representing the city at any meeting or event unless authorized by the council or specifically invited by the city manager. Or censure. The council could vote to censure the mayor, which would admonish I guess there's 4 apologies. The mayor to refrain from undermining the city manager's authority to describe and support the council's adopted position, and the 4th would be no action. The council could conclude no action is warranted. Council, have you reached any conclusions or any comments?
I feel with the mayor's own statement here tonight, that he, has a opposing view in this council as far as the city manager goes. And so I believe that we need a resolution. Council would pass a resolution prohibiting the mayor from representing the city at any meeting or event unless authorized by the council or specifically invited by the city manager. But at the same time, I believe that potentially to add the censure that to admonish the mayor to refrain from undermining the city manager's authority to describe and support, council's adopted positions. I believe that that's a two-part answer to me.
I think that's fair.
Other council's thoughts?
I agree. Are we able to adopt two?
We can do whatever we want.
Within reason, of course.
Within reason. I just need. Again, I go back to an employee who was put in a position, very bad position by an elected official during a meeting that was very disrespectful, very embarrassing, and without going into it, opening a huge liability to the city, that I think is the elephant in the room. I know that at my work, if somebody was to do that, there would be not a good day.
Yeah, I was actually surprised when I watched the meeting. I thought it was just mayor and our city manager who was in attendance. I had no idea. We had several of our staff members who had to participate in hearing that.
Well, and in the meeting, when you watch it, you've seen other people rally the same cry. And so that made it even worse because then you had a targeted group going against the city.
Yeah,
Very much an attack.
yeah, well,
That's not fair to our employee.
no, it's not.
Let's just say that. It's not fair to our employee.
Any other remarks, comments, or motion?
I'm ready to make a motion, Madam Chair, if you're ready for it. Madam Chair, I make the motion that we would have a resolution that we prohibit the mayor from representing the city at any meeting or event unless authorized by the council or specifically invited by the city manager, with the addition of censure that this council would admonish the mayor to refrain from undermining the city manager's authority to describe and support the council's adopted positions.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Complaint number 4, the mayor submitted a annual evaluation form regarding the city manager's job performance in which he judged the city manager's performance as being substandard. In 2023, the personnel committee explained that the mayor does not evaluate the city manager and the mayor did not submit a performance evaluation. In 2024, the personnel committee gave the same explanation. However, the mayor ignored the procedure and submitted a performance evaluation. Our code states the mayor shall not vote except in the case of a tie or no veto power. Our code also states the council appoints the administrator, determines the administrator's compensation, and evaluates programs of efficiency of personnel. And our city manager's employment contract states the mayor will provide the city manager with a summarized written statement of findings of the council and provide an adequate opportunity for the city manager to discuss his evaluation. Any rebuttal to complaint number 4?
Who would you like to hear from first? Councilor? Who would you like to hear from first?
Go ahead.
So here I simply brought this forward as, again, just more of an attention of there was instructions, the performance of being substandard is really irrelevant. It was simply just the fact that stated. It really comes down to the instruction that was received. There's instruction provided in 2023 and followed and documented. Same instruction was provided again in 2024 and not followed. If staff erroneously or in error hands him the form, the mayor should be informed of his duties and responsibilities, which was to not provide it. He simply should have handed it back and said, I'm not permitted to do that. Instead, he filled it out and then said, if this isn't permitted, go ahead and throw it away. I think that there's substance in the nuance of filling it out anyway and instructed twice prior to filling it out, knowing that it shouldn't have been filled out to begin with.
I think Jack teaches us a little bit. You get handed a lot of paper as a ton. My signature fill on every check that leaves it, except for the ones that Roar kind of signs for me when I'm not available. But I mean, everything on the document. End of that, I looked at it, I said, okay, fill it out. I said, if I don't fill this out, throw it away. That's what I did. Simple clerical mistake. And the down honest opinion, and what it is. And you.
Council, any discussion on Hampton Court?
I personally find this to be the least of our complaints. It really has very little weight in it. And I'm not real concerned with this personally. I'm not either.
Council, do you feel as if you've reached a conclusion? Would you like me to go over the remedy options?
Please.
So we have three. We've got resolution. The council could pass a resolution clarifying that the mayor may not participate in the city manager's performance evaluation. Censor, the council could publicly censor the mayor for acting outside his duties and admonish him to refrain from these actions in the future, or no action if the council could conclude that no action is warranted.
I don't think any action.
Yeah. No.
I think it was a clarifier.
Yeah. Agreed.
It's, that's.
That's what you have a motion on the floor. You'd like to get.
I don't know that we need to make a motion on this one.
Just an action.
No action required.
Action. No action. No action required.
No
John can say it another way. I think there's a value in taking action and saying you're taking no action. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Madam Chair, I make a motion, we do no action on, number 4. Complaint number 4.
Motion for consent. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This time, do I need to have it back over to our maker, or?
I believe if you concluded the process that you intend to engage in, I think it has put back in there to put to a very short meeting.
I would just like to summarize a few of my own comments prior, if that's okay. I feel like this conversation could have happened 5 months ago. I also feel that what's taken place in the interim was completely and totally unnecessary. The path for this process was exactly as Manager Stockdale stated earlier, that, you know, I've got issues. My path is to take it to council. Me being council president, that limits to me. It's my responsibility to have that conversation with the rest of us. And in that process, we talked about these 4 complaints, and it took us until our o'clock deadline to get through the complaints. And following that meeting, we had all kinds of issues with walking out of meetings and, oh, we didn't declare this meeting in the right way, and it was on and on and on, and it was completely unnecessary. We could have just sat down and had this conversation. And why didn't, that's my question that I'm searching for an answer. I don't understand why. But anyhow, I just feel like that this was completely unnecessary to have this turn out the way. Not the last one.
I'd just like to say too, I know it's the holiday season, we're going into a new year. I know all of us counselors want what's in the best interest of the to want to work forward, and I know that some of you will be going to that essentials elective training. I know I and Bruce just went to the one of the Dalles, and I would encourage everyone, if you're not able to attend, to go to that, because it was very eye-opening, especially as we've done a lot of this in the last 6 months. They are there for us to help us to make sure that we're also not exposing ourselves to any potential litigation. And I think it's really important to do that continuing education.
I would just also like to add that I appreciate this opportunity to have this conversation in a public forum rather than executive session. I would have preferred to have this in public forum all the way. Yeah.
Madam Chair, I make a motion. Return back to normal with them in charge of the meeting.
Have a motion, do I have a second? I'll second.
You think?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. This time we'll promote to adjourn this meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to adjourn meeting.
Thank you for your motion. Can I get a second motion, please?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.